Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tony, aka Blaze,
And my name is Dustin, aka Bosk.
and we are evenly matched.
Yep.
On today's episode, we'll be covering our first impressions of Hyrule Warriors.
Indeederino.
Indeedly doodly.
Indeedly do it, indeedy.
Alright, so what did we like about Hyrule Warriors?
Oh man, it's great so far. I mean, there's very few things we didn't like. First of all, I mean, it's got some great graphics. It's the first thing you're gonna see when you load up the game. I mean, graphics are beautiful. Like, I think it's the first time we've really seen a Zelda style. It's not an official Zelda game, I suppose, but it's the first time we've seen a Zelda style game in HD. So.
Yeah, we see all those like intro videos for like E3 where Link's fighting this giant spider in like this cathedral and it looks really HD and really dark and this is kind of that Zelda game, I think. But it's very cool. I mean, the graphics are awesome and oh man, it's just thinking about it. It's just, I mean, seeing all the videos and all the attacks that we did and everything that we've done in the game is super cool. So
yeah, and I think that was the really cool part too, was that all the abilities that you did just look so flashy, like everything. The characters, the way they attacked, the way they moved when you do your special move, and it would just like hit this huge wave of enemies, and they all go flying. But it was all very cinematic, so it was really really cool to watch. It just visually, it's very very impressive. There's so many enemies on screen at the same time. I mean, there's just tons of them, just all coming at you. So,
and it's very much its own kind of a Zelda art style too. It does have some other tributes to other games, but it's kind of got its own take on that stuff too. So it's not like this is Link from this game and exactly how he looked in that game. He's got his own twist and his own spin on his visual style.
Yeah, and I really like the blue scarf on Zelda, or on Link, excuse me. They've been doing this lately, this thing with Link. They've been giving him a lot more blue. I mean, his eye color has always kind of been blue, but like with this game, they gave him that blue scarf. And in the new Zelda game that they teased for the Wii U, they made him have like, I think it was like part of his outfit was blue as well. So they've been kind of throwing in the green and the blue lately, and I think that's really cool because it works really well. That specific color of blue looks really good on Link.
And he had that in Wind Waker. His pajamas were blue.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what they took from that game to put in the next Zelda game coming out. It looks kind of like his pajamas, but a little different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. But visually it looks really great. I think the only gripe I would have with visual style so far is that the world itself doesn't seem to really mesh that well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks good and everything, and it looks decently reminiscent of past Zelda games, but for the most part, most of the environments look kind of generic. Like, the characters look wonderful, the enemies all look wonderful, but the environments that you're in just kind of look like, Castle Field, or I don't know, Hot Rock Cave. I don't know. Like, they just look like these. It doesn't look like I'm in a. So far from what we played, we've only played the first 3 stages, but none of them really struck me as, oh my gosh, this is Zelda. Like.
I feel like the field one did, because I feel like it reminded me of Hyrule Field, and kind of a Twilight Princess feel to that as well. It was big and open. You can go anywhere and do whatever you want, but it did feel like there was only one like exit, and there was only one place to go. The rest of it was just kind of there, I guess. Like, there's all these cool like grass fields and tunnels, but there was only one real point of interest that made it feel like Zelda.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did to a degree. I'll agree. But I don't know. I just didn't feel like when I was playing it, I was just like overcome with nostalgia or anything. That's probably not what they were going for, but it's just one of those things when you're playing a Zelda game, you kind of want it to feel like a Zelda game, and the characters looked and felt very Zelda-like, but just the environments themselves.
I'll say that the grass looked amazing.
Yeah.
Trees looked pretty good.
That's some good-looking grass.
I really didn't think any of the graphics in relation to the environments were bad, but I think you're right. It didn't feel like there's only one point of interest in the game. I think that was the only thing bad about the graphics. That's not really graphics. It's more about the environment, and the design, level design.
It's a minor gripe, if anything. I mean, like I said, the rest of the graphics were amazing and great, and had a lot of fun. Enemies and bosses and characters all looked wonderful. So
bosses were awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun to kill those things.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. But yeah, that's the other thing I really like about the game, is that how immersed in kind of the Zelda storyline, environments and stuff aside. I mean, maybe we'll get to that point. We did get to the forest, and there was the Great Deku trees there. So I mean, that was a little bit of that Zelda kind of lore in there. I remember going, oh, that's cool, when we were playing. So maybe later on we'll get to like Death Mountain or something. We'll get to see that. Maybe we'll get to see areas that are kind of reminiscent of Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword, because the game is a mesh of those 3 games, like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword.
Yeah, I think these characters and the environments and the bosses and everything that's in this game are very deeply immersed in the Zelda universe. I think it's not, they didn't just throw this thing together and make this enemy. They really thought about what game it came from and what details these characters should have on them. So they did a great job of making these characters true to what they are.
Right, yeah, like even the Moblins, I think the Moblin design was pulled mostly from Twilight Princess, I felt like. I could be, I feel like it was Twilight Princess is what that was pulled from. Same with the Dark Nuts. I think they looked very Twilight. A lot of the enemies I feel very, very Twilight Princess inspired. But
yeah, the Lizalfos and the lizard guys, those guys looked really good too.
Those were straight out of Ocarina of Time, I believe.
Yeah,
they looked almost the same as they did there. Same with the Stalfos Knights. I think those looked exactly like they did in Ocarina of Time as well. Just obviously better textures and more polygons.
Yeah, definitely. So we also liked that there was tons of enemies on the screen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was cool. Like Dynasty Warriors has kind of always been about massive enemies and hacking and slashing through all those enemies and killing people, all these things at the same time, and then kind of getting your kill score up, your kill count up anyway. And that's always been a staple in Dynasty Warriors, and they transitioned that over to Zelda, and there's just tons of enemies on the screen, almost all the time. So.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I can't remember. Did you say you had played Dynasty Warriors before or not?
I had played Dynasty Warriors 2 probably 20 years ago.
Oh man.
And, yeah, that was a long time ago. And it was fun. I really did enjoy it. I played it with a friend of mine. We had fun. But it really did. It was on PS2, so it wasn't really the graphically rich game that we're getting today. But it was still very fun. And hacking and slashing through these guys was fun. And I just didn't know where to go or what to do in those games. But this one does a great job of giving you a direction and telling you where to go.
Yeah. And for me, I've never played a Dynasty Warriors game before. I kind of wanted to, but they always look kind of generic to me. They would put out like a new Dynasty Warriors like every game or every year. It was kind of like Call of Duty or something, Like there was always a new Dynasty Warriors, and I'm like, I can't even keep up. There's like Dynasty Warriors 6, and then Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires, and then I'm just like, what? I don't understand what the difference is. So I think it was one of those game series that just kind of flew over my head, just because of the fact that when I talked to people about it, they'd tell me it was just very hack and slashy. So I was like, that sounds cool, but I kind of like a little bit more depth. And so far, Hyrule Warriors feels like it does feel very hack and slashy, but it also feels like it's got a little bit more depth. And I think, I don't know how much more depth that's going to go in terms of difference between characters, because there's a huge amount of characters in this game so far. We've only unlocked, 3, I think?
Yep, only 3.
No, 4. We had 4. We got 4 by the end of it.
Oh, that's right. We did have 4.
Yeah, we unlocked that new girl. I can't even remember her name. But yeah, we unlocked...
Lana.
Lana, yeah.
Lana, yep.
So we unlocked 4 characters for the game, and they each feel similar. Like the controls still feel very similar for each of them. It's not like it's like 2 buttons. So one button to do attacks and another button to do a combo move in the middle of it, or a heavy attack, or whichever.
And we know there's I want to say 4 more characters that we haven't unlocked.
Oh, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, at least 4.
Yeah,
so we know.
There's at least Zelda. There's Fi, or Fi, however you want to pronounce it. I think it's Fi from Skyward Sword. There's Ganondorf. There's Girahim. There's the Goron guy. I can't remember his name either. And
Midna.
Midna's in there.
Yeah.
Ruto, the Zora princess. She's in there. Zant. So, there's a ton of characters to unlock. So we got a lot more. Yeah, and that's really cool. It's like what Zelda game lets you play as the villains and stuff too?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. I love it already.
Yeah, I'm curious about the storyline, how that's gonna, factor in with Ganondorf helping, Link and Zelda, when traditionally he's just been kidnapping Zelda and trying to take over the world. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and it may be something like you don't actually get to play as Ganon or as Zant or Girahim through the main game. Like maybe you just play as the heroes through the main game, but then when you go to the challenge modes, those will let you play as the other characters, like any of them. So I'm not certain so far.
It's a possibility too.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they may not work into the storyline that, hey, Ganon's helping you out. He may end up being the bad guy at the end, and you may have to end up fighting him because, like that dragon guy that we fought at the beginning, Volga, I think was his name. I think there's a downloadable content pack coming out where he's actually a playable character too. You can play as him, but we pretty much just defeated him. So.
Yeah, that's true. So the gameplay's fun. The gameplay was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is a hack and slash, like you said before, it feels like there's a lot more depth to it. There's a lot more special abilities you can do, and there's items and weapons that you get in the game that you can switch between and use. For instance, for the dongos, is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For that guy, you throw bombs into his mouth, just like classic Zelda stuff.
Spoiler alert.
And if you haven't played Zelda, where you been? Why are you watching this video?
Yeah, no kidding. That's back to the very first Zelda game, like way back on the NES. The dongos were vulnerable to bombs.
Yeah, so we know that's kind of been a staple in the Zelda series. So you throw a bomb in his mouth, blows him up. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But there's other stuff. There's other weapons and armors that you get. I won't tell you what they are, but it seems like there's going to be a lot more depth to it the further you get into the game.
Yeah, I feel like those weapons, like we got, what do we get? We get the bombs, and then we got the bow and arrow. So those are the ones we got. And obviously there's tons of swords and stuff too that you get. I mean, it almost feels very Borderlands-esque. It's like a lot of them are the same sword, but they have different stats assigned to them. And if I remember right, I remember watching videos beforehand, like preview videos in the game, and you can actually combine stuff, or kind of like an alchemy kind of system where you can actually merge weapons into other weapons to make them more powerful, which is kind of cool too. So that'll be neat to get through as well. But yeah, like so far we got the bombs and the bow and arrows, and you have to use those at different situations on different enemies in the game, which was really cool. It made you kind of think on your toes rather than just mashing the A button and then occasionally hitting B. So that was pretty cool.
I also liked the multiplayer on the Wii gamepad as opposed to split screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a couple of games that have done that already, like Call of Duty and Mario Kart, I think, does that too.
Mario Kart, I think you play all on the same screen. I think it's just, it's all on one screen on the actual TV. But
well, I think there's another game that does that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's awesome. Instead of having to do the split screen, both players get their full screen on, one person holding the controller on the tablet and the other person on the TV. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought we would just be doing split screen like pretty much every other game, but no, it turned out that you were playing on the gamepad as player one, and I was playing on the TV screen as player two, which seemed a little unfair. But I got this huge TV and you got this little tiny gamepad, but it works.
It didn't hinder me all that much. I felt like it was very well executed.
Yeah, no, it's still a lot of fun. That was a really cool feature because you didn't have to worry about, like when we were playing Disney Infinity, for example. I had some complaints about the camera angles, and I think some of those complaints might have been alleviated a little bit had I had more screen real estate to see where enemies were coming from, rather than half of a screen to see that stuff. So having that entire screen around you really definitely does help, and I thought that was really, really cool. The only thing I didn't like about it was that, and this is just, don't take this to heart because this is just on my part, we don't have a Pro controller for the Wii U at our place yet. I need to get one. I need to invest in one. But since we didn't have a Pro controller, we had to resort to using a Wiimote and nunchuck for the second player. So I was playing with the Wii Remote and nunchuck, and it wasn't bad. Like, I could totally play it. It was totally doable. But I know that the only way to actually attack enemies, to get your character to attack, was to swing the remote around, similar to Twilight Princess on the Wii.
Yep.
And it worked, I'd say, about 80% of the time, but there were other times where I was swinging it horizontally and my attacks were not coming through, and then I'd have to consciously tell myself, okay, I have to swing it vertically, and it just kind of took me out of the game a little bit. Now, could have been an issue with our Wii remote, I don't know, but I just know that playing it that way, it worked, but it had its little frustrating moments where my guy would do like a 3-hit combo and then just stop, and I'm like, no, you need to keep going. I'm still swinging. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of motion controls in general. I think it's cool for certain aspects of a game. I just don't like when, in this situation, when you're kind of forced to use them.
Yeah, and I tried changing the options as well to see if there's any other options to not use motion controls, but that's the only thing you're given in this game. Is if you're playing with a second player and they don't have a Pro controller, you gotta swing that remote around. You gotta
Yep.
gotta wiggle it.
And Yeah, so I'm not a fan of that, and I really, I really hope that they in the future will do more games that don't require you to use motion controls. For a game like Mario Kart, it's fine because we know it's a steering wheel, we know how to use it. But for Hyrule Warriors, I just want to press the button. That's all I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I should be given the option. If I don't want to swing the remote, I should be allowed to change that to press the button.
Yeah, the lack of an option for that is what really bugged me, if anything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we had some other cons to the game too.
Yep.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we mentioned the amount of enemies that were on the screen at the same time, which is awesome. But it seemed like sometimes that took the frame rate down on the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Even there's a couple of different places where you go through like this cave or something, and the cave is very visually stunning, but it feels like it took a lot of processing power to render this cave, so it dropped the frame rate in that situation as well.
Now here's my question for you, because I was playing on the TV screen the majority of the time, and you were playing on the Wii gamepad. Did you notice those frame rate drops on the gamepad as well? Like I noticed them a lot, and we had someone else in the room who was watching it too, and they later told us that they could definitely tell that the frame rate was dropping on the TV screen. But obviously I wasn't looking at the Wii gamepad like you were, so
I want to say yes, because I feel like I didn't notice it while I was playing, but when someone mentioned it, I do believe that I thought back about it, and I was like, okay, I do vaguely recall something like that, but I didn't look for it, so
yeah.
I guess if I was looking for it, I would have found it.
It might not have been as bad on the gamepad. I honestly don't know. It just, on the TV screen, it was definitely noticeable. It didn't hinder gameplay in any way, but like I didn't feel like it was noticeable lag, or it was actually causing me to play worse. But it was there.
It wasn't a giant frame rate drop.
No.
It was just it was there. It was noticeable.
With all those enemies on the screen, it's understandable. Like I wasn't mad about it, but it was definitely I noticed it was happening. Yeah, I mean that was frustrating. I think the most frustrating thing for me though in the entire game was that me as the second player, every time we would go to start a new storyline chapter, any chapter in general, like whenever we would go to start a mission, I had to consciously push the plus button on the Wii remote to join in and be a second player. Like it didn't matter if we had played a 2-player round before, it didn't matter what we did. It would always basically assume that the next round was going to be a single player round, and you had to tell it otherwise. And so we had like 3, 4, maybe 5 times where we'd pretty much almost start a round and then realize, oh wait, the second player's not in there.
Have to go back.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of levels in the game that are single player only, and I understand that. That's not really a problem. I'm actually happy, taking a break and watching you play, or I'm sure you are fine with that as well.
Right.
But when we just finished a 2-player match, it should keep you in the game. I think it should keep you as signed in, or whatever the case is. And it seems like you have to press the plus button every time, and if you forget, well, then you have to go back and wait for another load screen, and then you can finally jump in. But it was kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's a minor complaint again, but it's also a minor thing that I feel like should have just been fixed in the first place. Like that shouldn't even be a question. If you're playing multiplayer, you should, it should just work. It should know that, hey, they want to play 2 players. Cool, the second player's there. Not, hey, they finished a round. Well, I guess that other player's gone. They're not here anymore. So we're gonna assume that they're not going to want to play anymore. No, I still want to play. So, but I mean, like I said, those are a couple things that we had that were minor gripes. But otherwise, the game was beautiful. It played really well, and for someone who's never played Dynasty Warriors before, I really got into it. I thought it was really fun, and we're looking forward to playing it a whole lot more.
Oh yeah, I want to play it more right now.
Yeah, exactly. Which we're probably going to do. So we're going to play it some more, and hopefully get you guys a review here soon. And that'll be fun to give some final thoughts on the matter once we've played the whole thing out. But
and I think that if you haven't played a Zelda game before, this is definitely a great introduction into the universe. It's a different type of Zelda game, so if you're not sure if you're gonna like the puzzle solving aspects or the storyline or whatever the case is, this is a totally different way to experience Zelda, and it's super fun. So, and even if you haven't played Dynasty Warriors before, this is kind of the same thing. It's a great introduction, especially if you're a Zelda fan. You'll love every minute of it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have played Zelda games before, I mean, there's a ton of them out there that are really, really great. My favorite one, and this is kind of an oddball thing, I think we mentioned this on the stream too, my favorite Zelda game was Link's Awakening, the old Game Boy one. That was the first one I ever played through and beat, and I loved it. It was great.
Definitely.
Yeah. What was yours?
I liked, my favorite was Ocarina of Time, because I probably played and beat that 100% like eight or 9 times when I was younger.
That's a good game.
It was a great game, but I think my favorite, as far as the visual style, was probably Skyward Sword, because it just looked very, very stylized and very pretty. So
ain't gonna argue with you there. It was a gorgeous game. But yeah, I mean, you guys out there, hit us a comment below and let us know what your favorite Zelda game was. I mean, we love hearing that stuff. We love discussing it with fellow gamers as well, so we'd love to hear that from you. All right, well, that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what you think in the comments below as well. You can also follow us on Twitter or email your suggestions to evenlymatchedvids@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks for watching, everyone.